Hey there, Max Wright from Success Council, and I'm here with Edan Yago. Yes?
Correct.
Got
Yeah,
there, sorry.
enough.
Now, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself because you're wearing so many different hats in the Bitcoin community, I can't possibly remember them all. So just give us a brief overview of some of the things you're involved in.
So I would say I have one focus,
Okay.
and that is making the world safe for Bitcoin and the blockchain. I think that the most important type of free speech, most important type of self-expression is the self-expression of value and money. That's why we say when something's really important, we say you're going to put your money where your mouth is.
Right.
So for me, from day one, cryptocurrencies have been an issue of inclusion and freedom in the most basic and important sense. The issue is that it is also the most regulated space in the world, finance.
Right.
And a lot of that regulation is inhibitory both to the development of innovation and to the ability of people to transact freely amongst themselves. And so I've been focused on trying to show both the community and regulators in different ways how cryptocurrencies are going to be to the benefit of everyone. They're going to make transactions safer. They're going to make financial crime less prevalent. They're going to protect users. And they're going to reduce the costs and overhead involved in regulation. And I've been involved in this on the political level, working with companies and the government of Honduras to try and create new types of regulatory regimes, which are autonomous zones that will self-regulate themselves and could use cryptocurrencies as legal tender. I've been involved in forming Data, which is a self-regulatory organization for the industry so that we're regulating ourselves. And I think the way we should do that is not with bureaucracy, but with technology, better technologies, better auditing, better use of cryptography. Mm-hmm. And I've been involved in setting up a number of companies, the most important of which for me is Epiphyte, which is involved in building out systems which allow large financial institutions and banks to integrate their systems with cryptographic and crypto networks, because I think that what we need to do is build a bridge between crypto finance and traditional finance so that traditional finance can migrate to crypto finance.
I love it. So there's a lot of stuff in there I want to talk to you about. Let's go back to the work you're doing at Data. Which is trying to what you're talking about there is kind of like a cryptographic regulation. So I guess we're in the field of like the Merkle trees, proving balances of exchanges and things like
Correct.
that. It's down that kind of path. So why don't you give us a little bit of a heads up on how that works? Because certainly when it comes to regulation, I don't trust politicians to do it. I look at the Bernie Madoffs in the world and things like that. I don't feel like the markets are very well. They're regulated, yes, but I think it's in some ways it's kind of like a sanctioned privilege to a certain class of people.
Yeah.
And so a transparent cryptographic solution would certainly make me feel a lot more comfortable in the industry's regulation.
So my approach is a bit annoying.
Okay.
I tend to sort of focus on, so most of the people in the cryptocurrency community, they focus on the mistakes that the regulators are making.
Okay.
And there's no doubt that the regulators are making a lot of mistakes, but I think I'm a contrarian in that I place the onus of improvement on us, and I have been critical of the way that we as a community have been approaching the subject. And I think we've approached the subject in a very binary way. The argument has been, if you go into like Reddit or the Bitcoin Talk forums, you'll see that most of it is we don't need any regulation versus we need regulation, and if we don't have regulation, we're going to have Mount Gox. And so the argument has been this 2,500-year-old argument, which we haven't made any real progress on, less regulation versus more regulation. And I think we as a community, if we really want to see this succeed, we need to provide a third alternative. And the third alternative is to say, look, regulation is essentially trying to solve these human problems through a technological tool, which is called bureaucracy, right? Which is called rule-based, rule of law or rule-based systems. But we have a new type of rule-based system, which is a protocol. Mm-hmm. And so the more that we can build real technological innovations, and that includes innovations for something that people seem to, really hate. And they hate with good reason because of the way it's implemented today. The current implementation for KYC and AML is very bad. But the truth is that as someone who's running an exchange, for example, I don't want to be funding Hezbollah. I don't want to be funding, I don't want to act as a channel for which people who are doing nefarious things are managing to gain access to funds. I actually do worry about that. But I think that the way that we can effectively tackle that is by using technologies to our advantage. And I would like to see us as a community proactively say, look, this is how we're going to protect our users. We're going to audit our exchanges. Or even better, there are going to be no funds on the exchanges. They're going to be P2P, or they're going to have all funds held in multi-sig wallets. And there are companies that are doing that now. So Colored Coins are working on a distributed exchange. Crypto Corp and ourselves are working on multi-sig wallet implementations. Auditing is starting to happen. But we also need to go further than that. We need to be able to say, look, we're building out a web of trust, or we're building out cryptographic identities where you would go, you would register once with one agency that you can trust, and now you would provide that sort of proof of identity to each exchange that you were using, and then each exchange wouldn't have to take your passport, and so it would be more convenient for you as a user, but also your private data wouldn't just be proliferating around the web. We should be doing this proactively for ourselves, and as a result we'll be showing the rest of the world the light. Right.
And there are organizations here that are kind of positioning themselves as that at this conference, so that they want to take on that burden of KYC for exchanges.
Right.
And the benefit of that is like that you do it once and you can be satisfied at multiple places.
Now, part of the role that I see data playing is this. This is part of a problem of collective action. Because if you talk to someone who's building a wallet service, or if you talk to someone who's building an exchange, the ones who are doing this properly and want to make sure that their users are protected and want to make sure that their exchange isn't going to get shut down because they're legally compliant, they're the ones who have no users, because they're doing things slowly, they're doing things responsibly, they're taking their time, they're making sure. And in the meantime, the people who don't really care and at the end of the day they're the bad apples are just like running ahead.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we can do in data as an industry is we can impose voluntarily upon ourselves certain standards. And so everyone can take the time, because they will now have the right incentives to invest in protecting their users, in compliance, in making sure that they're there for the long term. And as a community, we can support this effort by, to an extent, supporting data in its effort, but also just, voting with our money. And that's the way the free market system should work.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, in the same way that like a takeaway sandwich shop might have like halal meat, and they'll have like a badge because the organization is someone investigated, says these guys use halal meat, we give them the thumbs up. You're talking about data being there, having these set of standards, saying we've taken the time to investigate this particular organization, they've met our standards, we give them the thumbs up. Is that what you're saying?
Right. I think if we don't do that, if we don't step up as a community, as an industry, and start acting like adults, someone else is going to step in and become the adult supervision for us.
Right.
And that's the thing we want to avoid, and it's the thing we want to make sure that never becomes necessary. And at the same time, if we do a good job of this, the effect will be even greater, because we'll be able to then come and instead of being defensive in our conversations, we'll be able to say, look what we've accomplished. Look how well protected our users are. Look how cleanly we've managed to make sure that we don't have nefarious actors. Why aren't you doing such a good job yourselves?
Right, become the leaders.
Exactly.
So as a consumer who uses exchanges, are there any exchanges that data have audited, or whatever the mechanism is that you're doing?
No.
Has that happened yet?
No.
Or this is the beginning steps?
No. So I'm not going to point to certain exchanges at the moment as being preferable, because we haven't gone through the steps. Bitcoin runs really fast, and humans work at a much slower pace. And so we're now putting together the infrastructure and the organizational capacity to do that, but we're not quite there yet. But we'll start to see that happening very soon. One of the nice things we've done, we've put together sort of a Meet Your Regulator or Meet Your Bitcoiner event in DC. It's going to be a massive event with hundreds of participants. We have representatives from the IRS, from Treasury, from Department of Homeland Security, from the Fed. We got Lawski speaking. We got the VP of the late Lewis Fed speaking. We got people from FinCEN there, and we are going to have an entire day of conversation with them, and then we're going to have a dinner with them in the evening, and everyone basically is welcome to come down to DC. It's on the 10th of April.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's on Wednesday, and so that's one of the big efforts that we've been putting together now, and that's been an external-facing effort. And in parallel, we're also now focusing on internal-facing efforts.
Right. Okay. That's all very cool. If we can just jump track now, going back to the Honduras stuff. Now, I'm really interested in this. Can you give us a little bit of a catch-up of what you've been trying to achieve down there and how far down the path you are?
Well, first of all, it's not me. There's been a lot of people involved in this, and mostly the Hondurans. I mean, it's kind of their show.
Yeah.
The person who has been leading this effort more than anyone, the real visionary behind this, is the current Secretary of State of Honduras, and he's been Secretary of State now for 2 different presidents. And his name is Octavio Sanchez, and this man is very, very impressive. And he's been working on this for around 20 years.
Wow, okay.
And he just feels like if you don't have competition for governance, and if you don't have the freedom to innovate, how are you ever going to see improvement?
Right.
And so he wants to carve out zones and make it really easy to carve out these zones so you have lots of them where they will be competing amongst themselves, and we'll see an evolution towards better government. So
nice.
Have government less an issue of sort of like a liberal arts debate, and more an issue of technical improvement and free market competition.
Yeah.
Which has worked in every other field, right?
Yes.
So, in addition to him, there's Mark Klugman, who used to be an advisor and speechwriter to Reagan, has been very involved with them. And my role has been primarily in working with some of the companies who want to open up zones there, and also in working with them to create currency competition, to think through how cryptocurrencies could be part of this, and also how we could use blockchain-like technologies to replace some of the traditional functions of government, such as property registration, voting, etc.
Okay, so I mean, with regards to blockchain being implemented to use as voting, all that kind of stuff, that's the Honduras government saying we're trying to set up these things so these things can be experimented with in these locations, as opposed to trying to say here's how the free zones are going to work. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, right. Cool. So I mean, is there a timeline? Do you know when do you think we'll start to see these free zones start to appear in Honduras?
Well, I'm not really at liberty to say, but I do believe we'll start to see the first ones appear by the end of 2014.
Oh, wow, that's exciting.
Or the first quarter of 2015, assuming it's slower than I expect. So Octavio is a very smart man, like I said, and I think we're going to see this development happen not at the pace of Bitcoin. It's going to happen slower than that. I just don't want people to become disillusioned because they're expecting, the ultimate narco-syndicalist, polycentric legal zone to come into existence in 2014. I think if we did that, the whole experiment would get shut down almost immediately. And I can suggest a government somewhat north to Honduras, which may play a role in having it shut down. And so they're going to move forward, I think, more conservatively, but as a result, as opposed to many other libertarian adventures that have happened over the last 25 years, I think this one is actually going to succeed. That's all very, very exciting. Is there a main hub or website we can go to read about what's going on? Yes, it is. It's in Spanish. I don't remember right now the URL, but if you search for it, you can find. There's also Mark Klugman's blog. You can also follow my blog or my Twitter feed. And I will tell us what those are. So my Twitter feed is on Twitter. I'm at Edan Yago, so that's EDANYAGO. Yes. And my blog is really simple. It's edanyago.me. Cool. And when I'm able to, I publish updates there. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. That's really cool. Okay, next time, if we still have time, you're doing something which I think is really cool. You're offering, or you're participating in something which is a white label exchange.
Yeah.
Which is you're going to do. Why don't you just explain what it is and help us out?
So one of the things that I did a long time ago, like, well, at least in Bitcoin terms, towards the beginning of 2013, was I worked together to put we put together a network of cash-in and cash-out points in Central America, working with the 3 largest pharmacy franchises. It would have given us, and we still have it, but we haven't really utilized it. It would have given us the largest cash-in, cash-out network in Central America, and what we wanted to do was to use it for remittances for Bitcoin. And today, actually, I was on a panel on Bitcoin, and I kind of irritated everyone by saying that I didn't think remittances was as big a deal for Bitcoin as everyone thinks it is, because I think that we have a lot of other problems that we need to solve first. And so, for example, one of the things that we realized was that unless we could generate liquidity, unless we could generate an easy way to turn, for example, pesos into Bitcoin and vice versa, remittances would not work. You can send the Bitcoins, but then what do you do with it, right? And so the next thing I started doing was I started looking to utilize a white label exchange and set up a series of exchanges in Central America. And I went and we spoke to BexIO, we spoke to Buttercoin, we spoke to Alpha Point, we spoke to everyone. And for one reason or another, I didn't think that their offerings were either ready or satisfactory. And so we went and we built our own. And we recently launched a small beta of our exchange in Mexico. And we were going to start seeing further rollout in additional countries soon.
So is this MexBT?
Yes.
Okay, so you guys have provided the software for that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. So now if I want to find out more about that white label software, where do I go? What site?
I actually don't think we have a site. I'm fairly non-traditional in my in my approach. I'm not really that available online. I've been mostly quiet. I don't even give that many interviews. But yeah, I suppose we may set up a website now. I don't like to do things before it's really ready.
Okay.
So even Honduras, one of the things I kept on saying is I think this is really big, and I've been working on it for a while. But I didn't want to talk about it before I felt like this is going to happen.
Right. Okay. Now, is there anything else that you do want to talk about? What's your primary thing you're doing right now?
So my company Epiphyte is involved in building out enterprise software, which integrates with the existing large financial pieces of infrastructure. So that's SAP, Oracle, Swift, and related APIs. And basically what we do is we're making it really easy for these financial companies who have very large pieces of software, of hardware, very often mainframes, to start using their systems to communicate with crypto networks. And we're basically onboarding them onto the crypto networks. And at the same time, we're helping them figure out what their place in this world could be and how it could be a revenue center for them. Because I think that for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies to succeed, they need to integrate with traditional finance. I think that traditional finance, in order to do better, needs to migrate to crypto finance. And I think that if we want to be able to have a real voice at the regulatory table, we need to have the people who have influence over the regulators speaking on our behalf.
Awesome. That is all we have time for today, but thank you so much. I love everything you're doing in the Bitcoin world.
Thank you.
Take care.